Does this work? Is it working? I think it might be working. I just got an alert on my phone that actually said I was live, and I think it's working. I don't want to touch anything because I'm afraid that if I do, it will just explode. So, what happened? And by the way, welcome. It's Wednesday. It is 15 minutes late. And so what happened, and the reason my hair is all sticking out because I was all stressed out, and we confirmed that we've got audio and video. Whew. So right before 10 o'clock, to the top of the hour, I was going to hit the go live button, and I thought, let me refresh this studio. Let me refresh it. So I hit the reload button just to reload the screen, and the camera quit. The camera just like, and so it's like, what? It was working literally like 3 seconds before I went to hit the live button. So, whew, boy, wow. And I see that there are folks in the chat. Folks, do me the favor of smashing the like button because I'm a moron. That's really just the only reason to do it today is for that. I'm checking in the chat. You know, what's funny about it is that there are more people in the chat right now than there are usually by this time. And maybe people just couldn't pass up a good train wreck. One thing I am good for is the train wreck. I'm going to the chat. I'm not sure if I can see all of the old stuff in the chat because I feel like it may have been cut off for me. So I'm sorry about that. If you had some comments earlier in the stream that you want me to see or to address or to look at, please let me know and I will check them out. I see Maeve and Pete and Daniel, what's going on making the stream. I see Josh, who has been doing work for us with the mom and dad jokes. I appreciate that. There's John and Game Guy and Leona and all kinds of folks that I'm excited to. Oh, Adrian and Zach and Margaret and Soren. Bloom later. What is up? Sabina. Yes. Thank you, folks, for smashing the like button. That went from 1 to 12 likes like in an instant. D says, you call yourself a moron and generate more likes than anything. That's truth. I ask people to smash the like button for all kinds of reasons. And then I say, because I'm a moron. And everybody's like, yes, smashing the like button for that. It was awesome. Niche Campus dropping in, and Marika. You guys missed all the jokes, and you also missed all of the ridiculousness. And Sonya. I don't know if Niche Safari, I don't know if Chris is lurking. I think Chris is in a different time zone than usual right now. So if Chris, you're catching this on the replay, what's up? I hope your adventure is going well and you're enjoying yourself. So I'm sitting here drinking this coffee. And one of the things I had on my list to talk about is that I listened in an audiobook. It was, I forget the guy's name. I even wrote down the author's name somewhere else. I had it like all queued up on this other screen over here, but I restarted my computer and lost all my windows. But I listened to the book Caffeine, How Caffeine Created the Modern World, and it's completely got me like rethinking my consumption of coffee and caffeine. I if you really love coffee, I do not recommend that you listen to this book or read it because it will have you questioning everything that you ever believe of or in. But the history of coffee was like very, very interesting, and also the use of caffeine in the development of the modern factory and the modern line of production, I thought was fascinating. So just it was on my list of things to talk about, and I just wanted to put that out there because I've got my coffee. John says that Bella says hello, and I feel like everybody should say hello to John's daughter, Bella. Just in the chat, say hi to Bella. Bella may one day join us as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed, successful individual. And so just throwing out there, hi, Bella. We can't wait for you to get started and to join us. Soren says, is the tech fails Chris's fault? Chris is not here to defend himself. So the answer is yes. D says the author of How Caffeine Created the Modern World was Michael Pollan. And that is correct. That was the author that I was speaking of. So there are two like 10, like last week we talked about top of the funnel stuff because I had reviewed a Facebook post about the top of the funnel, about looking for keywords that are away from the product, that are more about putting yourself in your user's shoes. And I saved or looked at or set aside another Facebook post. And for those of you who know that I started my journey here as I don't want to say disciple, but I fell down the rabbit hole of the whole Russell Brunson affiliate marketing, ClickFunnels thing. And I still follow Russell Brunson on Facebook. And one of the things that he posted about this week was how when he was coaching, how when he takes on someone as a student, that he only allows them to work on one funnel, right? So one funnel, one business. Like if and then once that one funnel, one business reaches $1 million, like it's producing $1 million a year, then he says you can work on whatever you want. You can have 20 funnels, you can have 100 funnels, but as long as you have at least one. And I was thinking about all the reasons why you would want to do that. And I think it applies to, websites and online business and all the stuff that we do as well. And like the initial thing that we all think about, right, is one is just time, right? It takes a ton of time and energy to bring one site, one funnel, one business to a place of success, right? There are only so many hours that you have to work, during the day or during the week, during the month. So if you spread those things out, you can assume that every website, every business would need the X number of hours to make it successful. And regardless of what you are doing, regardless of the niche, regardless of your experience, like you would need to invest like X number of hours to make that happen. And how having multiple businesses, multiple websites, multiple funnels, how it would just make that harder because you could just not invest the number of needed hours, like the drops in the bucket to make that happen. Another thing that really resonated with me in that post was the people that I see that are successful with websites. They treat their websites as individual businesses rather than like side hustles or creative projects or like something I'll do on Tuesday. Most of us don't, and I put myself in that category. I don't always think of it as a business, right? I think of it as a thing I do, or I think as a way I make money. But let's say that this was an offline business, right? Let's say that you were good at building shoe shops. Would you on a Tuesday, because you'd had an extra cup of coffee, decide to start another shoe shop? You would never do that, right? Like starting a shoe shop would not be a shiny object. It would be a business, right? If you wanted to start a business, you would spend a lot of time planning, right? And you would be investing time and money in like launching it, right? Like with a purpose. Not only that, you would not start another shoe shop until the other shoe shop that you had that was on 6th and Grant was in a good place. Because if you have a shoe shop that is still growing and still needs your time and attention, you know that if you just start another shoe shop, that it would probably yield the death of that previous shoe shop. And just putting together the whole idea of focus along with the seriousness of treating these websites like businesses just really hit me because I'm constantly struggling with shiny object syndrome, or thinking about the projects that are in my portfolio that I've neglected because I've started new projects that are now more successful than those old projects, and like, oh, I should pull those out. But truth is, I have a shoe shop. I have one shoe shop that is still struggling to get to that initial goal. Like if I was Russell Brunson's student, there is no way he would let me open another shoe shop right now. And in fact, he would probably tell me to put down the other shoe shops that I had already started, even though I'm like, oh, like these are seeds and they will grow. And he's like, no, this is dividing your attention and your effort from the shoe shop. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because I've been thinking about it, and I have these other projects that are in this strong growth phase. Like, the fight site, right, that I started last July. It's 10 months old now, and it is. And I wouldn't say like it doesn't go like this, right? but like last month it grew 60, 70, 80%. And I can see myself like if I could just put more content on there, that this could be like a pretty decent shoe shop, right? But in the meantime, I have the Amiga site, which costs $3,000 a month and is on track to make more money every month, like from here on now into the future until I stop working on it. I'm like, this is a shoe shop that is not quite at $1 million yet, but is on its way there. And if I work on it less because I want to start these other new tiny shoe shops that may or may not succeed, maybe I'm hurting my primary, like well-earning shoe shop. And I've been obsessively thinking about it. And it's so hard for me because my other two new shoe shops, there's the Fight site, which is 10 months old, and my Otis Stud Global case study, which I wanted to talk about more just because I think it's fun to talk about and just watching its progress in the last couple of months. I see myself like, oh, like if I don't invest in these, like they won't succeed. But gosh, I have this other thing and I have this goal of like taking the site to $10,000 a month and doing it as quickly as possible. And is it possible to do it by the end of 24 months? And the answer is probably not if I invest more time and money into these other things. And please just raise your hand in the chat if this is you right now. If you had these thoughts today or in the last like week, please, it's like I feel like I'm at a meeting, right? Like I'm at an Alcoholic Anonymous meeting, or these like addicts meetings where they come and just vent and they just say, here's all the things that I have done, please like support me in this. You cannot take my addiction away, but at least know that I am not alone. Like, please tell me that I am not alone in this. Oh my goodness. I'm scrolling back to the chat because I went on in a rant for a bit and now here I am. People saying hi to Bella. Thank you for doing that. I think that's awesome. Bloomlater says that caffeine gives them heart palpitations, but so does looking at analytics. That is why you should stop both of those things. I really do think that a no look, like an analytics break, is coming for me because I find myself checking it more than I find is helpful, productive, or anything. Pete says the stream is no longer sponsored by Starbucks. Yes. Sonya wants to know how everybody's blogs are doing, and I would love to hear that also, especially from Sonya. There is Mark. Maeve says, interestingly, she's thinking of merging two sites. Leith is a sub niche of Icarus, and I'm thinking of merging them and focusing on just one of them. That could be a good idea. Let us know how it goes. Graham is here, and he says, hello, friendly friends, and we say hello. John is back to working on site one. So site one was the site that you wanted to get to $1,000 a month so that you could start and work on site two and site three. And so now you've come around and you're thinking, okay, site one. So John, my question is, how high do you think site one could go? Like, do you think it has a ceiling, or what do you think, where will it max out? I'm super curious. Niche Campus, our friend Niche Campus, says he saw that tweet and he loves the idea. So we're talking back to Russell Brunson's tweet. And yes, I am not sorry to admit that I still follow Russell Brunson and sometimes find his endless string of like inspirational memes like helpful. A lot of times they're just calculated, to try and get us to pay attention to him, and all the rest are like warm us up so we will be willing to spend money on him. I also saw another one. Matt Diggity had a really good community post in his community tab lately, and I wanted to go back and read through it. And so now I'm like on the fly, oh wow. So he recently took his channel, which had 7,000 subscribers, and Matt Diggity now has 51,000 subscribers. Well done, Matt Diggity. That's what will happen when you put time and effort into things. Ooh, I found this post. It's from 2 days ago, and like I said, this is not my writing. I'm not going to say that this is my own. These are Matt Diggity's words, and I think it's really interesting, and I'm going to read part of it. He says, it says, the human brain is conditioned to pay more attention to pain than to pleasure, which, if you think about it, Like, I don't know if I agree yet, but I'm going to read. He says it's a defense mechanism. Um, let's see. When our ancestors were running around in the savannah of Africa, evolution wanted us to care more about running from the lion as opposed to with the hot cave woman that you had your eyes on. Anyway, sometimes his, but that condition carries forward to this day. The fear of losing money is much stronger than the desire to gain it. And this is the point where in this post, I really started to pay attention because that is me, right? So, and I think about my evolution in creating a website and trying to grow it into something that makes lots of money. I have a really hard time putting money into these sites, right? So, in the beginning, especially with the Amiga site, I wanted to write everything. I did not want to spend money on content. I did not want to hire other people. I still don't have VAs. I don't have any tools. I haven't spent any money on links. I'm afraid, and I call it being conservative, really, when it's like anxiety about putting money into something when I don't know for sure that that money is going to come back out, that that money just won't be lost. It's like that, a bird in the hand is worth two in a bush. Like, you're better off having the money in your hand versus risking it on the chance of earning more back. And yeah, and I was really thinking about that. I was like, yeah, that is totally me. He says, so anywhere I'm going with this is that the SEO game, there's a lot of ups and downs. You're naturally going to pay more attention to the downs because your brain is wired that way. So there's another aha moment coming. And that was an aha moment for me. He says, who cares that my entire website is up 200% compared to last year? I just lost number one on a keyword. And he's like, my air quotes. And I'm like, me, so me, right? So it doesn't matter that every single website that I am working on, with the exception of the Project Resurrection, the 2019 case study, which like completely defies logic and reason and frustrates me. But every other thing that I'm working on, primarily the Amiga site, the Fight site, and my Otis.global case study, all of them are growing insanely well, right? Like you go there and you say, oh, 10% growth on the Amiga site, that means quite a bit. And then the traffic, almost doubling over here. But because maybe the growth isn't as much as I had in mind, or maybe it's because the last 2 weeks have plateaued a little bit for the Amiga site. I don't feel good, right? I just can't focus on the positive part of where everything is going. I'm like really, my motivation and like how I feel about the whole business is like because of this my like focus on the negative part. And I kind of felt like it was a nice explanation, so I understand a little bit. I mean, I'm not to say that Matt Diggity is like an expert in psychology or any of this other stuff, but to talk about how maybe some of us, not all of us, but some of us are more conditioned to respond to and focus on the discomfort part versus like reveling in and the positive and using the positive as a momentum to overcome the stuff that is negative. I mean, that's so me. And sometimes I wonder if that's not just evolution, right? How some of it is nurture, right? Like many of us are raised to really focus on the negative because it's something that we need to overcome, right? The positive stuff, that's all good, that's happening, that's great, but we have this other negative thing in our life and we should get rid of it, we should overcome it, we should attack it, and that needs to be the focus. Like the good is good, but because there is something that is not good, it needs to be our focus, that needs to be removed. And it could be evolution, it could be the nature nurture, but it's something to think about when you find yourself struggling. I have talked to many people, and there are some of you who are in the chat right now who have expressed these feelings of like, I don't want to say depression, but just being down when, you've done all this work, you've posted all this stuff, right? And the outcome wasn't necessarily that positive rush of dopamine that you were expecting, right? Or it was even something negative. You did all this work, and this is what's going on my Project Resurrection, where I invested money and time and effort and put in new content, and then traffic goes down. Traffic is going the wrong way, folks. Traffic was like this stable or even going up. As soon as I started working on the site, it started going down, right? And that is really hard to avoid focusing on the pain. Like we're conditioned to focus more on the pain than we are on the positive aspects of anything else that we're working on. And so this like detour down this road, I don't know what the solution is, right? I think the first step though is identifying that it exists and that many of us are predisposed to it. And that if we let it rule our businesses, rule our habits, rule our the stuff that we work on in our routines. I think you could see a lot of people saying, this business isn't for me, right? Or really struggling to get in there and do the work that needs like the grind because they're still stuck in that like negative reinforcement. Like, I'm doing all this work and bad stuff is coming out. Like I'm putting in positive and getting negative back. And maybe it's a matter of sitting down and saying, okay, I know this is something that will happen and something that I will focus on. And either need to remove that negative input from my business. Like maybe I should just trust that what I'm doing is going to do right, is going to be right, and stop looking at the thing that gives me the negative input that slows me down. And for me, I think what it highlights is how much I need to get out of analytics. I just need to make it a thing that I check rarely and only for the purpose of making sure that everything is functioning the way it's supposed to, not as a means for motivation, not as a means to get fired up and like to get in there and do the work. Like how analytics look on Monday should have zero impact on whether or not I get up to go to my computer and post my content. So just something to think about. That's another thing that I've been thinking about in the last week since I spoke to you all is how best to get more done, because I really need to figure out how to get more done without burning out and while still having some fun, because the grind part, it's not always that fun. I'm going over to the chat and I am catching up. I am behind because I ranted and ran. Niche Campus, when we're going back to our shoe shop stock, he says, you only buy out the company next door once you're killing it and stealing all the business. Yes, well, you would only buy out the company next door if you had the money to do it, first of all. It's not something you would do when you were in the hole and broke and not making money. You would never start another business at that point. Like it would be crazy. Marisic, what's going on? He says, hey, y'all. Steven, what is going on? Niche Campus said he just sold 2 of his extra shoe shops. Very excited to focus on just one shiny shoe shop. That's another thing I was thinking about this morning. It's like, should I just try to sell the floundering mom blog, Project Resurrection, and instead of letting it distract me, like give the fixer-upper, pass on the fixer-upper to someone else who might want a fixer-upper and they don't have other shoe shops to worry about right now? I don't know. I'm thinking about it. Graham says that he started his second site only because a persuasive friend promised that he would give me tons of content. 11 months later, and so far, zero input from him. Goes to show you that you have to be very careful about who you start a shoe shop with. Savina says that she was thinking about all of this morning too, like times like right now when life is really chaotic. Zach says, so I should give my secondary shoe shops the boot. Puns abound. The puns abound. Pastor Duke says that I think it depends on whether or not you consider yourself in the publishing business or you are in the website business. So I don't know if I agree, Pastor Duke, because I think that you can be in the website business or in the publishing business, but either way, we're working on trying to grow those things into something that meets whatever goals that we have. And that goal could be an extra $100 a month, or it could be thousands of dollars a month. But I just don't see anybody who in the beginning, before they have a successful shoe shop, is really making it work with lots of shoe shops, whether or not they're in the website business or in the publishing business. Yes, we now have the tools and the skills and the abilities to publish thousands of articles across lots of websites, right? But it seems like the folks that are the most successful, and I'm not saying that this is for everybody, that many of the folks who are the most successful found a way to push one of those websites or one of those online magazines to a point where that business was earning enough money that that money could then be turned around and spread out and used to grow the other shoe shops. And I mean, and this would not apply, I think, if you happen to already be a successful businessman or woman where you happen to have lots of capital overall, but in general. But if you, I would love to hear your response though, using our analogy of shoe shops. John says, is your niche shoes then? And the answer is no. And in fact, I know very little about shoes. And I probably, as a female, have the least number of shoes compared to just about any woman that you know. Sonya says, I'm only earning $100 per month. At least I'm passionate about my shoe shop. Well, my dear, your site is on its way to earning more the more time you put into it. Karen says, she's been working on her first shoe shop full time, and the second one I have time, which is not often. Graham says, it all comes down to whether or not you put all of your eggs in one basket. The chat just scrolled ahead, and so I'm going back. All your shoes in one basket. Other people who are distracted and thinking about having too many shoe shops, I love all the hands that are going up. Affiliates Anonymous. Daniel says that he was thinking about opening a new shoe shop. He says he's got 100 posts, but it's a new shop, so I thought I should start a new one while it's in the shoe sandbox. I think if you'd asked me about this 2 years ago, I would have said, start a new shoe sandbox. I'm not so sure that that's the right call anymore. Zach says, should I raise one hand for every shoe shop that I own? Look, if we had everybody raising hands for all the shoe shops, we would be here all day in the chat because the chat would be flying. Because I know many of us have multiple shoe shops that we neglect because we have so much to do. Marika says, it's hard not to work on two shoe shops, but I chose to focus on one first. Yeah, my view, how I feel about this is evolving over time. Other people are considering an analytics ban. Yeah, I feel like we might need to get together and do an organized no look like time period, a no look week or a no look 10 days or a no look 30 days or something. And maybe we'll do it in the Icarus accountability group, or maybe we'll just choose a month. I mean, no look November was it just sounds nice because of the end for November, you know, no look November, like no look June just doesn't sound quite as nice, but it just might be necessary for my personal health. Mark says that he has 2 blog sites and a directory, and I am not going to create any more websites for now. I think the more websites you have, the less you can focus on them. Focusing is key. I think if you have a team, that could probably help overcome some of that, right? If you have other people helping you. But if you feel like you have a hard time spending money, like the concern, the worry about losing money is stronger than the potential upside of it, which is the second part of Matt Dady's post that I really didn't get to focus on because it feels like a sideways rant. Then that can be really hard. Bloom later says he's got hands full with just one site. And I said, yeah, that's pretty much how I feel also. Samina says, I'm super afraid to check analytics. My summer seasonal site should be taking off, and I'm afraid it's not. So what will happen if you were to look and then realize that it wasn't? I mean, would that derail you? Or would checking it and seeing the analytics like flying like this, like, could that just change your life? Tough question. Zach says he has elves working on shoe shop number 1. The shoe shop analogy is going wild. Pastor Duke says his primary blog that he started in 2011 is doing well, which is awesome. And he's added 10 foreign languages to it. That sounds exciting and interesting. And I'm I would love to learn more about how exactly you brought those additional languages in. Jay-Z says, oh, back to site one. He says it's got 700 articles and I'm going for 300 more by the end of the year. Currently does 2,000 a month, which is good. Says, I'm curious if I do 1,000 posts, if traffic and revenue increases. Well, my hope is that it would. It's a question of, is there room in your niche to get there? Niche Campus says, I found it much easier when I had more cash flow to spend on writers. It felt like giving up excess for a future benefit, which actually worked out, but it's still like making bets. Yes, because it's the pain of spending money, the fear of losing money is stronger than the upside of like earning it back. Sonya says that going back to the pain versus positive negative reinforcement says in behavioral economics for college degree, pain of loss is always greater than happiness of gain. This is why humans like to minimize risk when it comes to investing resources. Graham says that he has also been chasing articles. His goal is 200, hoping that the milestone unlocks more earnings. It's like a video game, like achievement unlocked, like click click, and it opens up a door to a new world. Let's see. D says, question to the audience. Oh, excellent. Has anyone had random pages in Search Console? How do you tell Google to ignore them? I'm sure some of them are spam. So you're saying that when you go to the Pages tab in your Google Search Console under the Performance tab, that you're seeing URLs in that tab that don't actually belong to your website. And I'm questioning one, how they got there, and why Google is attaching them. Super curious. Let's hear about it. Bloom later says, I seem positive. I am, I think overall, I'm fairly positive, but I am not immune. I am not immune to the ups and downs of the mental load of this business. I suffer them just as much as anyone. And I think most of mine are artificially created, right? Because I have these really big goals. I have dreams, right? I have lots of dreams. I have these really big goals, and I expect to be able to get to them in a relatively short period of time. And that's not often realistic, right? And so when I cannot achieve those goals and I'm like, I'm trying to get there and can't get there, then there is it has a depressing, like, not like depression, but like it presses down, like it just makes it harder to get going again. Or like, oh, I want to get there. And I also lose perspective really quickly. Like when the Amiga site was brand new, I was really excited about the first $100 a month that it was earning, in a really short period of time. And now that means like nothing to me because I've set my sights on this other goal that I want to get to in a short period of time when I should be really excited. Like I did before coming on the stream today, I did a 30-day average of what the site has done in the last 7 days. I took 7 days income, divided it by 7, and then just did it the average for the month. And the site could earn $3,600, $3,600 in the month of May, plus whatever it does over on Amazon. And the site is 16, 17 months old. Like that's a good result, but I have lost perspective and I find myself disappointed that it's not 4,000. So yes, I am positive, but I create situations where I'm like mad at myself and it's not even justified. And I know I'm not the only one out there. You don't even have to put your hands up. I know that I'm not the only one who does this. D says that they're like this: Detroit, Chicago, Tampa, JS, JCB. I think that has to do with the Zoic. If that site is on a Zoic, I think that's what that is associated with. And you should message me after the fact. Oh, Pastor Duke says these are from a Zoic. Yes, they are JavaScript files, nothing to worry about, and Google will ignore them. All right, yep, you don't need to message me. Somebody else has answered that question. Jesse, what's going on? Our friend Niche Informer says that he checks earning once a day, rankings once a day, and I check analytics many times for each site throughout the day. So why do you think, Jesse, that you check analytics so much throughout the day? Like, is there a good reason to do it, or is it just for fun because it's enjoyable? I am scrolling back because my chat moved up. Let's see. Pastor Duke says, I agree that they need to succeed on one before going on to more, but that depends on the definition of success. Small niche, 100,000 per month. I totally agree. Somebody's definition of success is not always going to be the same, and what is possible in one niche may not be possible in another. For example, you choose the outdoor niche, right? There's millions of keywords there. There's potentially millions of visitors per month in traffic, right? So you could set the goal of earning $20,000 a month, $30,000 a month in ads on that site. That's possible, right? And a win in that niche versus if you chose Dungeons and Dragons for 13-year-olds living in Zimbabwe, right? The niche is going to be really small. And what's success in that niche is going to be really different. So it's a good reminder, as always, not to spend too much time comparing yourself to other people, other niches, other levels of experience, because it just makes you grumpy. And that's it's like almost like a reminder to myself. I have to remind myself of this because I'm totally guilty of that. It's like a do as I say, not as I do situation. I talk about it all the time because I'm reminding myself of it. This is me telling you to do better than me. Please do better than me. Let's see. Pastor Duke says he owns one major shoe shop selling low profit shoes. I had a second shoe shop selling profitable shoes until recently. Now I'm building another shoe shop in case all my effort is lost. I love the shoe shop analogy. It's going to be, I need a t-shirt. It's like, I own shoe shops. Don't look June. If we could find another, like a good name for it, like something that starts with an alliteration with J's, like just something June. Help me out here. John is going off to do some work on his shoe shops. Thanks for dropping on, John. And good night, Bella. Have a great day. Scrolling says, how many articles do you think a site needs to be not qualified as small? I think it depends on the niche, to be honest, because if it's an outdoor site that has millions of keywords, then an outdoor site is probably still small at 1,000 articles. So I don't think that that's quantifiable, in my opinion. Sonya says, it's not about losing anything, but more about being stuck. Still stuck at 40,000 sessions. So how much more content have you put up, though? Because I feel like, Sonya, a couple weeks ago, you were at 30,000 sessions and you were planning on doing a content push. Like, how far into that content push have you actually gotten? I'm curious to know. Let's see. D says it depends on the niche, which I totally agree. Corey, what is up? He says, I'd make that decision based on traffic rather than articles, probably 100K. If I had to say a number of articles, I'd say 500 to 1,000. Back to the question about what makes a small site small and a big site big. Graham says that his parents are from Zimbabwe, and I can confirm that there is not much Dungeons and Dragons over there right now. See, small niche. We started 15 minutes late, so folks, I'm planning on going 10 or 15 minutes over the top of the hour if you are planning for your day. One of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit was Project Icarus, because I have not done a ton of like diving into it here on the stream or even in my updates, because I really didn't feel like there was a lot of information, right? I hadn't really gotten a lot of feedback. So here's some, and I'm going to compare it to my progress on the Amiga site, right? Because these are two sites that I have started recently, last year and this year. So the Amiga site, for those who are not familiar with it, is in a super not competitive niche, like super not competitive, like wide open blue ocean in most ways, right? There were tons of keywords when you would do the search that Quora or a forum would show up in the top 3, sometimes even number 1, right? So it seemed like there was a lot of low competition options for initial keywords to get started. Project Icarus is the opposite. It is competitive. There are rarely that I find keywords that in the top 3 results that you'll have Quora or a forum or Pinterest or something else that is user-generated content. There are some really big names, like not just like big sites, but just like really big recognizable names that it seems like it would be really hard to outrank these names in the niche for anything. And having done more research into the niche and the competitiveness of it, I sometimes regret having chosen this particular domain in this particular niche because it seems extremely competitive. And so and it makes it not necessarily a really good like comparison, right? Like the mega site, like how do you do on a fresh domain versus how do you do on an age domain? Because the niches are so different. But here's what I can say so far. So right now, the Otis.global domain that was given to me for free has less content on it at the end of 4 months than the Amiga site did. It just recently crossed 1,000 page views a month, though, which is not actually that far behind where the Amiga site was with more content. Indexing, and one of the reasons I think that there is this progress is that the site is indexed, that the articles are within a reasonable amount of time after I upload them are showing up in Google Search Console and also in SERPRobot and are getting traffic. Now, are these articles showing up in slots 1, 2, and 3? SERPRobot says for the most part the answer is no, which is not surprising, right? Because it's in a huge niche. You'd like to hope, right, with an age domain that every article that you would produce, that it would show up in the number one. And the reason the site is getting traffic is probably on long tail keywords that are being picked up in the article, and I'm just not tracking. But as far as like how I feel about the project, and do I feel that a fresh domain in this in this niche versus an age domain, like would they be the same? And I think the answer is no at this point. I think that in this niche with this level of competition, that the age domain is performing better than a fresh domain would have and is. The other thing I'm noticing as far as indexing, now not everything is indexing, it's probably like 75%. So when I post a new article, whether or not that article indexes based on that keyword that I've chosen quickly, like within a couple hours versus like a couple of days or maybe not yet, has to do with I think the competitiveness of the term and the volume. So let's say I've picked a random keyword like fence posts, and that fence posts keyword, the volume for it is like 300,000 according to SuperBot, versus a keyword that is more of a long tail question like, can fence posts be placed in sand? And the search volume is closer to like 200 and not quite as competitive. The long tail one that is less competitive is more likely to show up in SERProbot quickly, usually in a short amount of time. And the other ones, the more competitive ones, take longer, have just been taking longer to make it into SERProbot. Google Search Console says that they're green, right? It says that they're indexed across the board. It says everything is indexed. But until it pops in SERProbot, I'm like, I don't believe it. Google, I gotta be able to see it in the SERP tracker to believe you, because I don't believe you. So I thought that has been interesting. And right now, so at the end of 4 months, the age domain versus the Amiga site, the indexing situation is about the same, right? So the same thing is going on with the Amiga site as far as whether or not things will index quickly is really connect. It seems to be like correlation doesn't always mean causation, but I can almost tell if something is going to index quickly or not, depending upon how large the search volume is. I do not expect that keywords that an article focused on a particular keyword that has a large search volume will index quickly. Then I expect the longer tail ones with the lower volume and lower competition to um, to to be the opposite. And so comparing it to the launches of what the 2 or 3 other sites that I've launched in the past 2 years, so far, I will say that in my experience, what I'm observing is that the indexing situation is less dramatic. Things are, I think, ranking maybe more like I would expect them to like a year from now Like it's really following along like what I am seeing with the Amiga site. It doesn't feel like a new site at all, which I mean, let's face it, that's what we were expecting. That's what we were hoping to see. I think that if I was starting in a fresh domain with the same content, that I think it would look like the fight site did in the first 7 months, which was crickets, totally dead. And so thus far, I am feeling positive about the result of just from what I've learned so far. Now, do I think it is imperative that in every kind of case somebody go and purchase an age domain before starting a site? I don't think the answer is yes in every case, but I can see just from watching the data that in the future, if I was going to launch something like the fight site again, like I knew that I was going into like a competitive niche, that I would feel comfortable going with an age domain. I honestly did not have like high hopes that I would so quickly see, I don't know, evidence, like results, things that made me feel like positive about sort of the decision. But I feel pleasantly surprised. I'm looking down at my notes. That's what I'm looking at here, um, as far as how things are going. Like I feel confident going forward on the Icarus site that if I was to continue to challenge the, I guess the niche with in like some of the competitive terms that it I wouldn't be in the bottom 1,000, and that's what's happening on the Amiga site. So there are keywords on the Amiga site that some of the bigger sites, the more established sites have taken up. They're sitting on the top like 10 spots. There's no Quora, there's no forums and stuff. And so I've started creating articles on those keywords, kind of curious to see where they would land and also as foundation. And it's really destroyed my average keyword ranking in Soap Robot. They're following like, 150. Like you see them, you're like, man, that's awful. And I'm just not seeing the same on the Icarus site. Even keywords that I would expect to be, very, very, very competitive are still in like page like 2 or 3. Definitely not 1, which is where it would be awesome if they were to be, but definitely not like buried like on page 35, which is where things are with the Amiga site. And that makes sense because the Amiga site is 16 months old and doesn't have an awesome DA. I think it's still pretty weak and pretty vulnerable at this point. But I don't know. I may have to actually make a dedicated video on this topic to really like line out the points and explain it better. But that's where I'm at right now with that. I think it's interesting. Checking the chat, I see Eric, our friend Income Grinders, dropping into the chat. What's going on? Soren said, talking back, I think we were talking back to Sonya about posting another 10 articles, a 10 article push, which is awesome. Progress is progress, and I concur. Uh, let's see. Zach says article count doesn't matter. $1,000 from 10 articles is just as good as 1,000 from 1,000 articles. In fact, I would say it's better because the amount of time and effort that it took to create 10 articles, in my mind, would definitely be less than a thousand. Yes, $1,000 is $1,000, but I would certainly like to do less to earn that $1,000 just overall. Uh, just Jot June, bringing out the J's. So we're trying to figure out a good name for an analytics break for the month of June. And so far we've got Just Jaded June or Jaded June, Just Jot June, and so on. Let's see. Question. It said, Eric wants to know, are you building links to the Amiga site? And the answer is no, not yet. But I've definitely started thinking about it because I see now that the site has some value and I would like to protect this asset in some way. And I do know that it is very common, the tomb raiding strategy, right? Like this, and it's not to comment on whether or not this is a good idea, a bad idea, ethical or not. I think all of us have at times taken a look at our competitors to see what it is they're doing, keywords that they're focusing on, maybe even focusing on keywords that sites that are not necessarily that authoritative. Like, what are they doing? Can I outrank them? So we just sort of accept that that's a strategy that is happening. But I think that now that it's an asset that I would be pretty bummed to lose out on, especially in its growth curve, that it may be time to make it look less like a delicious bite to just, like low hanging fruit, like something delicious that I just want to grab and just take. And I think that will require some link building. I mean, it'd be awesome to do the link building and, build the moat around the site to protect it, but then also to get additional traffic back out of it and more money and all the things. It's just not my strength. I'm gonna stick with the growth mindset, and I'm gonna use the words yet, not my strength yet. In fact, I'm not the only one thinking about this. I listened to Jasper Peterson on the Niche Website Builders podcast this morning, and I don't see Jasper in the chat today, but if you catch this on the replay, Jasper, it was a good interview, and I enjoyed hearing you and your progress. And I feel like we should all like when any of our number gets a chance to be featured on a podcast and put us in the ranks of other lofty colleagues, it's good to have him join the ranks. And he was talking about starting to turn towards learning about link building and starting with Haro, starting with Help a Reporter Out, and just starting with some other strategies to make that happen. Dee says, please try this out and document it so we can all learn. Links are still a mystery to me. Well, I don't think that like links in itself are really a mystery, right? You have follow links, do follow links, don't follow links, all of the links. We know how to place the links. The question really is like how to get other people to link to us, and those people, those sites being good links, and not necessarily having to pay an arm and a leg for them. Um, I've definitely sat on the sidelines and watched some of our colleagues do some of this, working on the skyscraper technique, doing it themselves, paying for someone else to do it for them, doing outreach. I have a really hard time with the spammy emails. I have a really hard time, like I hate the clutter that my inbox becomes, and I hate doing that to someone else, and it feels wrong. And I know it works. So I just have to figure out some sort of way to make that happen. Maeve says that this is part of her reasoning in merging sites. One is DR17 and one is 15, hoping merging them makes them less vulnerable. Yes, well, regardless of whether or not they're actually stronger and more authoritative in Google's eyes, it's that people are using tools like Moz and Ahrefs and these other research tools to get an idea of whether or not they think your site is vulnerable. And so if you could just pull them out of the fire, out of the sights of these tools, then I mean, maybe we should all just block our sites from being scanned or reviewed or crawled by Ahrefs. Maybe that would be the solution. I'm going to my heck fire. I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Folks, thank you so much for being here today. It is Wednesday. I'm sorry that we got started off to a slow start today. I blame Chris and the technology. We will plan to be back here next week. I've been talking with some guests. I hope to have some new people here on the stream who have not been here on the stream before. And you may also see some familiar faces in the near future. As Pastor Duke says, it's been a pleasure being here with all of you. I look forward to seeing you, hearing from you, talking with you next week. Have a great day. Get lots of stuff done, and we'll see you next week. Take care.